Okay, you guys are probably wondering why I haven't told you any cheesy jokes during this build. So I got one for you right now. What's a cow's favorite game? Musical chairs. Where do chairs like to give most of their money? Charity? Ooh, okay. All right. Today's the last day of our simple chair build. You're going to notice the chair we're building today is not made out of alder. It's actually made out of pine. The reason for this is I was having some issues with the drill press, so I couldn't finish out the chair we were working on yesterday. And I just happened to have some parts of a chair I was working on earlier in the year that are at the same stage we were at yesterday. So we're going to pick up where we left off, and we're going to be working with pine instead of alder. Today, we are going to take the seat that we made, we are going to shape the seat, the bottom of the seat, so it's comfortable to sit in, and then we're going to put the whole thing together. We should be done by the end of the video. Let's get on it. So this is a template I made to mark out where we should put our posterior. Posterior is a fancy name for your bottom, by the way. So when you make a seat, you want the bottom of the seat to feel good on your posterior, on your bottom. So you want to carve it out. To carve it out, I'm using this tool. This is called a pull shave. It's basically a fancy plane that you can use to cut out kind of a concave curve. So I'm using this, just going over the seat. You can see it's not super clean, but it's going to work. Now I'm testing my posterior on the bottom to see how it feels. And the bottom feels good on my bottom, so I'm going to sand it out. By looking with a straight edge, we can see I took a little bit off the front and then I went gradually to more off the back. This is supposed to feel best on one's bottom, I've heard. Then I took a hand plane and some sandpaper, and using these tools, I just took off all the sharp edges. Now the fun begins. It's time to put the chair together. So first, I'm rough fitting everything to make sure it all goes together. You can see it lays out pretty nicely. Once I've got the legs laid out where I want them, I'm going to use a flush trim saw to cut the tops of the tenons off. Then I'm going to mark out where the legs are located on top of the seat. Once I have the legs located, I'm going to take the legs out, and then I'm actually going to make a cut in the top of each leg. I'm using a handsaw here to make a kerf or a cut in the top of the leg. Once I put the leg in the top with some glue, I'll put a wedge in this cut, and it will help keep the leg in place while the glue's drying. The next step is to work on the seat back. Here I'm using the joiner to plane down the edges of the seat to make sure that everything's nice and flat. I then ran the other edge through the table saw. After this, I'm marking out the location of where the uprights fall on the seat back. Then I'm going to glue the seat uprights in, and I'll eventually clamp the back onto the uprights. We've given some time for our legs to dry and for our back supports to dry, so everything's all glued up now. The last thing we're going to do is cut the tops of these off, plane them a little bit, and sand it. And we'll do the same for where our back supports stick out. And then the best thing to do is to drill a hole in where this support comes through, and a hole in this support where it comes through, and to put a dowel in there. I'm actually going to skip that step for this. We could do the same thing on the backrest, but I think the glue is probably going to hold it in place. And then finally, we'll level it out, and we're going to make it a little bit lower, because right now our seat's a little bit too tall. Let's try that out. I think this part's interesting. Right now, our chair is about 2 inches too tall. So I'm going to take 2 inches off of the bottom of each leg. To do this, I'm using a 2-inch block. I'm putting the 2-inch block flat on the top of the table saw, and I'm marking out with my pencil on the top of the block. I'll have a line where it needs to be cut now. I'm using the flush trim saw to carefully cut off the bottom of each leg. Then I'm going to use a hand plane to put a chamfer on the bottom of each leg. A chamfer is a 45-degree angle that prevents the wood from chipping out when the chair drags across the ground. Once I have this done, I'm then going to sit in the chair and see how it feels. It feels pretty good. I'm actually going to compare it to another chair that I made a while ago that I think is comfortable. Feels okay. I'll make a few small changes. I'll sand everything up, and it should be ready to go. I know it's not a trebuchet or a soapbox car, but we finished a chair and we did it in 3 days. So I hope you learned something from this simple build. I hope you got a chance to see some of the tools we use in the shop, some of the techniques that we use to build, and I hope you guys learned at least a little something from the process. So the chair's done. To finish up this class, let's move on to something a little more exciting. See you next time.